Hello, community, and welcome back to another Keeping It Real with Dr. Anita podcast. I am your host, Dr. Anita Polite-Wilson, C-Suite Trusted Advisor, Elite Team Strategist, and Board Director, preparing businesses to navigate culture, complexity, and change. Well, we are here in our third of our series of real conversations from the C-Suite with Mr. Leo Bottary of Peernovation and with Jim Roberts, the president and CEO of Jim Roberts Enterprises. We've been talking this month about DEI and the notion of retiring the term, rewiring the work, and what that looks like, and how CEOs can have these conversations, not in a vacuum, but with their peers. And that's what Leo has been sharing with us, while Jim has been sharing with us some of the myths around DEI and the fact that it really is strategic. It's not just the right thing to do, but it's a good thing to do for business. So, Jim, I want to start with you. At the break, we were talking about DEI strategy and politics. Say a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so I think what a lot of times people get wrapped up in is, politics versus strategic economic impact. And people are nervous about what's going to happen, what's going to be, talked about as far as in press releases or things of that nature, or having shareholder activists come after them or politicians, really when they should be looking at the economics of what's going on with their companies. And so as I tell people, during these types of conversations and when I speak to people around the country, it's very much like the stock market. In the short run, the stock market is irrational. You'll see jumps and falls, all kinds of machinations of the market. But in the long run, it's very rational. So you can't, look at your company and manage your company by the short run. If you're going quarter by quarter, you're not really doing your shareholders, a firm justice in investing in your company. It's really is, what are you creating for them for long-term value and for long-term growth and long-term sustainability for your company. So leave the politics out. You can't ignore it, but you don't have to lead with that.
Mm-hmm. When you use the word specifically, strategic economic impact, I like that because too often we see diversity and inclusion as just a culture thing, but you're clearly setting it up as a business thing. So my question to you, Jim, is how do we change the language to make it what it is, business and results oriented, not just culture based?
Yeah, so getting rid of the terminology, as long I've had people tell me, and I agree with this, doing the right thing, I'm never going to go wrong doing the right thing. So do the right thing, whether you call it DEI or whether you call it, community engagement or whatever, that's just cover. How are we doing this? It really is what is going to happen and how can we make it happen that creates a, as you call it, and I say the same thing, it's an ecosystem. Mm-hmm. How do we create an ecosystem where everybody is going to be able to, flourish? And that's where, I talked about in one of the prior sessions about the $6 to $8 trillion of gross domestic product that we can be creating, where it's not a zero-sum game. It really is additive, that we're adding into the economy and creating opportunities for everybody. And that's a lot of it is, fear. People fear that they have to give up something. So, hey, Jim Roberts, you're, gaining in this area, so somebody else has to be losing. And that's not the case. And it goes to Leo's point of being, in that whole peer group. You're creating an additional grouping of people that then can be engaged. And so I've gone through Leo's book and looked at different sessions of it, and it's amazing how many of the things that he espouses in the book I already do in my day-to-day life. So
Yes, I felt the same when I was reading his book too. I'm like, this is pretty much a handbook for every engagement that I've ever had with my clients from years back, even before I started my own business. Jim, you mentioned fear and community. You all know I love acronyms. And if you remember the acronym for fear, I can't take credit for this one, but it's one of my favorites. False evidence appearing real. I think sometimes leaders get hooked up in things that they're afraid will happen, that there's no evidence of them happening. And then, Jim, you also mentioned the phrase doing the right thing, and it made me think of Spike Lee's movie Do the Right Thing. At the same time, Leo, when I hear do the right thing, it's relative, because some people can say, I'm going to do the right thing for folks that I can identify with. So my question to you, Leo, is what language does this sound like in CEO forums when we're talking about diversity and inclusion and retiring the term but still doing the work? Are they leaning into their corporate values? Are they seeing it from the viewpoint of the organizational ecosystem? What's the language that you're hearing? And is it aligned with your book? Is it aligned with what Jim is saying? Or do we need to create some alignment in these forums? Give us some insight.
I don't find that people are getting caught up in terminology. I will say that. Secondly, is kind of what I mentioned before about how people tend to hang around with people like themselves. It's kind of their natural state.
Yes, it is.
People look like them, think like them, or whatever. But then it also really, I think, aligns with what Jim talked about. When we think about the stock market becomes most volatile, not with bad news or good news, but with uncertain news. And I think we should expect no different from employees who, because they typically hang around with people just like them, when they're put in a situation now where all of a sudden maybe there's a little more uncertainty there for them, right? I mean, and so this is why peer groups, I think, can be so powerful, because you put CEOs together in groups where you've got a greater level of diversity than they have, they experience it. Then they are able to model their way for their employees to experience the same thing, remove the uncertainty, understand the value and the benefit of what it can mean for everybody, involved. And I think it makes a big difference, and I think that that's why, so much of this is so powerful when we take what the highest performing CEO forums have been doing for decades and how to take those practices and those principles, and there's proven practices and principles, by the way, and how do you bring those and model those for your teams and your companies? And I think when that happens, and I think we're at a time where, everyone's nervous about AI. Well, we better get the people right first.
Yes.
The people part, right? We need to get the people part right. If we are going to have, the kind of adaptability and, willingness to, I think, engage one another in a way that we need to, especially at this rate of change, like we never have before.
When you mention the fact that we need to get the people side of things right, I'm always leaning into people-focused, whatever my client needs. With AI, with changes in the marketplace, with changes in the stock market, what language is going to really resonate with leaders to remind them of the fact that people are still the foundation of their businesses, and to lead accordingly, to lead inclusively?
I wish it were a one-size-fits-all answer, and it's not. So you have to leave that for leaders to be authentic and be their true selves in terms of how they communicate that. And I think that's going to be where it will resonate most, I think, powerfully with the people they lead.
Fair answer, and I will accept that coming from you. Well, community, did I not tell you that this month's series of Real Conversations from the C-Suite was going to be a series you didn't want to miss? And in case you missed the first or the second episode, just go to my LinkedIn page, Anita Polite Wilson, PhD, and you can go through and find any of those. Or feel free to go to my website, dranita.com. Make sure you spell out the word doctor. If this podcast raised your awareness in any way and you want to share it with your own community, please do so with your comments. This community is a learning community, and I want to know what you think. And please, as always, continue to stay in the flow with me by following, liking, and oversharing any podcast that helps you reframe hot topic conversations from difficult to different. Before we sign off, community, Leo, tell us where we can get your book, please.
Go to Amazon, you go to Barnes & Noble, go wherever you typically buy books. It's the second edition of Peernovation, forged by CEO Forums, perfected for teams. Yeah, grab a copy and let me know what you think.
Thank you for sharing it with us. And Jim, where can folks get more of your articles? Again, you are an amazing writer in your own right, and we want to share your voice with the community. So where can they go to hear more of you?
They can go to my LinkedIn page, Jim Roberts at jimrobertsenterprises.com. And that will have several of the articles in it as well. They've also been published in the National Association of Educational Procurement, College Services, Minority Business Entrepreneur Magazine, and the latest one was in Supply Chain Management Review.
Fantastic. Congratulations. Well, community, I've already given you my standard sign off, so let me end with this. April is Stress Awareness Month. To lower your stress, take a breath, have a conversation, a real, authentic, transparent conversation, either in the form of a Peernovation where you get with your colleagues or just a one-to-one conversation where you can drop your guard and be real. If you ever need to have a conversation, I'm here. Stay blessed and keep it real.